Outrage at reports of an alleged rape of 29 boys in Protea Glen in Soweto. Now, the Commissioner has called for the perpetrator not only to be brought to book, but to be handed a stiff sentence and the longest jail term. Well, police have confirmed the arrest of one suspect in connection with the case. Let's join now in our Pretoria studios the Commission for Gender Equality, Commissioner Mbuyiselo Botha. Ndate Botha, thank you very much for your time this evening. Certainly one of the many shocking incidents that we've heard about now, and this comes just on the backdrop of a similar incident reported in one of the prestigious schools here in Gauteng. Are we starting to see a trend of these kinds of acts in our schools?
Well, yes, Griselda, we think that it has been happening, but probably underreported, because the difficulty, Griselda, is that with young boys, it's normally taken that they can live with it. So society does not, in fact, take this seriously, the rape and the abuse of young boys.
Ndate Botha, I think something else of concern that just crossed my mind is that if you look at these kinds of scandalous and cruel acts, they're committed by people who are known to these victims. How does this impact on the victims emotionally? Specifically because it even becomes more difficult to report when it's somebody that you trust, and these are people who are very close to the victims themselves. So to get young boys, whether it's young boys or young girls, to go and report people that they trust makes it additionally difficult.
Absolutely, because what it then does is the perpetrator, the survivor of the victim, then begin to blame himself or herself. That look, there's something that it is me, it's my fault. I caused it. Had I not been in that position, or had I not done certain things, probably he could not have molested me, could not have abused me. So there's this element of self-blame where you begin to think that there is something essentially wrong about you, when in fact it's about the perpetrator.
Ndate Botha, you know, society perhaps, would you agree, should take some kind of responsibility, because as far-reaching as this could be, you know, majority of men do not report cases of abuse. We're perhaps heading towards a stage where women would still go to a police station and report abuse against them. But for men, it's still increasingly difficult to say, look, I have been raped.
Yeah, so true, Griselda. So true, Griselda, because it's about the stigma, it's about the shame associated, especially with us men, that I will not talk about rape, and I will not talk about any form of violence, because then society is of the view that men can be abused, can be violated. But we know the truth is that they do happen. But Griselda, and to your viewers, the majority of people who still get violated and raped are still, the statistics tell us, are still women. But we notwithstanding the fact that there are men that, and the boys that you have seen now, who gets violated and raped. So society should take responsibility, Griselda, in that we actually shut down. We do not even want to countenance or even believe young boys or men who are being raped. And the danger is, Griselda, is that they will end up themselves becoming perpetrators, becoming rapists, becoming abusers, if we do not listen or we do not give them psychosocial support.
A lot of that, I think it's a conversation that I was also having with my colleagues just a few days ago about there is a lot of assistance. Yes, the statistics themselves do show that, you know, these acts are mostly perpetrated against women. But where is the assistance for young boys, for men, or even groups themselves to assist men if they've been violated in this manner? And what role can society play to change the stigma or the way that society thinks in terms of abuse towards the young boys as well as men?
Well, Griselda, I know that the organization I work for, the Commission for Gender Equality, we will not discriminate. I mean, when men or boys come and seeking help, we will either help them or direct them to specific services. But now what can we do, Griselda, your question, very important. I think it's about time that society, we disabuse ourselves of discouraging men and boys in particular who have been violated not to speak out. I mean, as society, if we must get to a point where we're saying that all forms of violence, of abuse, should outrage us. And that means, Griselda, our society, we must get to a point where we're saying that men, it's in fact courageous. It's in fact a badge of honor when men say, Griselda, that I am at my wit's end. I don't have answers. I seek help. I am vulnerable. If we do that, who knows that we may even decrease the level of violence that men do to other men and to women. So it's about time that we wake up and say that we can't just look the other way. When boys get raped, when men get violated, or when they violate each other, one another. And we know that, I mean, churches can't remain silent, and all of us, Griselda, we can't fold our arms and begin to normalize rape.
And Dr. Botha, I think, culture also certainly plays a big role in this, because you would know, of course, in many of the traditional backgrounds, you are told, indoda haikali, a man doesn't cry, indoda is strong. So a part of that societal mentality, I guess, would also need to change, where men are told you cannot cry, you certainly cannot be raped. What did you do about it? You are strong enough. You shouldn't have to go through something like this. So society and culture most importantly as well, where you are told, you would know this, uyindoda, you're a man. You can't really be going to report that you've been raped.
So true. That is why it's so important to work with traditional leadership. And part of our work is in the 9 provinces, Griselda, because you can't wish traditional leaders away. It's important for them to be allies, to realize that, I mean, traditional leaders, as you walk with them, that there are certain social norms or traditional values that we must begin to change, all of us. That's why, I mean, other than traditional leaders, Griselda, you also have to faith-based, religious organizations, all of us. I mean, sporting bodies. We know that boys get violated. I mean, you spoke about one of the prestigious schools. I mean, where boys get raped at places where they look for support. Now, that is why we are saying as a commission, part of doing or getting into MOUs with different traditional houses throughout the country is specifically, Griselda, to make sure that traditional leaders, they become allies, because they do have children, they do have girls, they do have boys.
Dr. Mbuyiselo Botha, who is a commissioner at the Commission for Gender Equality, always very insightful speaking to you. Thank you very much for your time this evening. We'll take a short break here on Primetime News. More after the break.